Hello, hello. This is Fake the Nation, where we talk about news, we talk about culture, and where we wonder, why didn't Doritos release their holiday-themed gingerbread Doritos in the United States? I'm your host, Negin Farsad, and the gingerbread Doritos were only released in the UK. And listen up, chip company, we Americans made you. How dare you deprive us of what is probably a weird and gross but interesting chip flavor? I will not be insulted this way. Do we have a listener in the UK who could maybe hook me up? I don't know. Today, we'll use our Dorito rage on the continuing shutdown and the new report on billionaires. We'll also look at Jennifer Lawrence and whether celebrities should weigh in on politics, plus the outrage in Paris about the opening of a Shein store. So gauche, mon Dieu. And finally, we figured out what women want. Apparently, it's boundaries. Okay, very excited to have all these conversations with the assembled panel that is, as far as I can tell, incredible. So that's just the bar they have to live up to, and I think they can do it. For the first time ever, we are joined by comedian and writer. She's host of the monthly show here in New York City at Stonewall. It's called Strap. She is the excellent Olivia Levine. Hey, Olivia.
Hey everybody, how we doing? Happy to be here.
Oh my God, so happy you're on. We are also joined by a Fake the Nation favorite. You've heard him one megillion times. He's the host of the Political Orphanage. He's a writer. He's got books. He has even other podcasts. Too many to name. He is the incredible Andrew Heaton. Hey, Andrew.
Hello. I am so happy to be back.
Guys, he's back. He's wearing a suit, and I'm told a series of clean underwear, one on top of the other.
I was so excited to be able to come back to this that I bathed, I shaved, I put on deodorant.
And you can tell.
I am wearing not one but 3 pairs of clean underwear. I did laundry yesterday. Very excited. I've been prepping for this for hours.
And yes. I mean, we can really tell Olivia and I are just all aflutter.
Yeah.
Before we get into it, I just want to remind listeners that you can support the show by going to patreon.com/Negin Farsad. For as little as $4 a month, you get bonus episodes of the show. There's tiers beyond that. There's a tier below that. For as little as $1 a month, you get the incredible self-satisfaction that you support the show that you love. And that's it. However, that self-satisfaction is priceless. Is it? No, it's just $1 is what that self-satisfaction costs. So go to patreon.com/Negin Farsad. And in the meantime, we'll get into it with topic number 1.
Ooh.
Jennifer Lawrence has been on the circuit promoting her newest movie, and she's kind of made news by saying that she regrets talking about politics lo these many years. She said, quote, "We've learned election after election that celebrities do not make a difference whatsoever on who people vote for. And so what am I doing? I'm just sharing my opinion on something that's going to just add fuel to the fire that's ripping the country apart. I mean, we are so divided." Now, I don't know, Andrew, I don't know if you're like a J-Law head, but
we dated briefly in the 90s. It didn't work out. She's a lovely woman. I wish her the best. We don't talk anymore. Kind of my fault.
Right. I mean, honestly, because in those salad days of yore, you were only wearing 2 clean underwear, and she's more of a 3 clean underwear kind of gal, and I think we all know that. But Andrew, what do you think of this? I mean, obviously, this has been sort of like an issue bubbling under the surface for so many, and I feel like she's kind of one of the first kind of outspoken people to come out and be like, "Baby, I shouldn't be outspoken." Yeah. What do you think?
I think she's onto something. So I myself am a political mutant. I'm an independent, and I've got scattershot ideas that are across the board. And as a result of that, I've had to become adept at being able to talk to people I disagree with, because with most people, I disagree with them on something. And Trump is such a evocative figure that any conversation surrounding him really draws out a lot of very, very intense and passionate perspectives from people. There's very few people that are neutral on Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. There's very few people that just are like, I don't know, I haven't made up my mind yet. I don't feel like I've heard enough from the guy. And when you're getting into conversations with people that you disagree with, one of the best things you can do is ask yourself, what is the point of this conversation? Is the point of this conversation for me to signal my fidelity to my particular political tribe? Because that's very different. If I'm saying stuff in order to let people know behind me that I'm on our team and I hate the other team, I'm playing for the chorus. is the goal that I want to understand the perspective of the person that I'm talking to, which I think is a very good place to start? Is the goal to actually convert people to my position? Is the goal to get them to vote how I want them to vote and to win elections? These are all very different ways of doing it, and I think that a lot of the time when we get into the Trump territory, when people go 10 out of 10 constantly against Trump, while I probably agree with them on the majority of the stuff, I'm not a Trump guy myself, I think that there's a capacity to tune off people that hold my nose voters. There are a lot of hold my nose voters that voted for Trump. I don't think they should have done it, but they don't particularly like him. And those are the people that might potentially leave the Republican Party when Trump goes away. They're the people that are potentially going to shuffle over. And so you don't want to engage with those people by immediately going 10 out of 10. And
turning them off,
I'll say on my end, one of the things that I kind of have to deal with that's weird is I'll get criticized for not being 10 out of 10 smoke alarm constantly. And I have to kind of push back and go, I have a certain amount of credibility that I get because I can call balls and strikes, and because I can go, I really don't like Trump on this one thing. He did okay on this thing over here. And I find that when I'm talking to Trump people, they will listen to me more, and it makes me more efficacious in being able to get that dialogue going and potentially show them some errors in their ways.
Right. You earn their trust by sort of like not like having your hair on fire all the time. Olivia, it's interesting because when I was reading like some random other article about which celebrities are voting for which mayor, and Amy Schumer like had a thing where she was just like, I just voted, and the guy I voted for, it rhymes with Duomo. And I thought that was really interesting because, like, she sort of like started her career, notably having like a lot of like feminist sketches in the Amy Schumer show, or Inside Amy Schumer. And so it just seemed like an interesting to like sort of like live your political life with these changes in your political life. I mean, I just thought that was an interesting admission or whatever.
Totally.
And I don't know, what do you think of like of these celebrities kind of like have, living their political life out loud?
Yeah, I mean, with Amy Schumer, I'll say it. I've been being disappointed with her. I think, I mean, she decides to go publicly support someone who has multiple, sexual harassment, assault allegations. Meanwhile, she purportedly is a huge feminist, and I think her views on, what's going on in Palestine are not my favorite. So I'm a Zoran girly through and through. But I think in general, with the celebs voicing their opinions, I think maybe what Jennifer Lawrence is saying, I think kind of getting at the crux of what is happening is important here, because I think maybe, or at least how I interpret what she's saying, is like people aren't listening to celebrities because people feel very alienated from celebrities, right? So maybe a certain group of people are listening to celebrities, but a whole other group or many other groups are not, because they're like, well, I don't live a life akin to that in any way, shape, or form. So I think maybe the conversation to be having is like, or rather, maybe instead of Jennifer Lawrence renouncing, talking about politics altogether, it's sort of like having this conversation of like, why aren't people listening to celebrities? Why is what you're saying not landing with certain people? Because I think that's actually really important to get into.
Yeah. I also feel a little bit like just in general, we see that like celebrity has sort of been flattened, right? Because we have so much of this constant access to celebrity through social media. Now something they say is almost the same as like, my Aunt Doris, you know what I mean? Who just said something at this. So there's like flattening of their kind of voice. It feels a lot less special. It's sort of like Taylor Swift's, 39th album or whatever, it's like there's only so many things we can hear before they stop seeming special. And so I don't know. What do you think, Andrew? Should celebrities just like leave us wanting a little more in general?
Well, I think, by the way, Olivia, I think your point is very, very astute, that people do feel alienated. And I think I have occasionally got the view from celebrity political endorsements that, hey, we're the cool kids table. Don't you want to sit at the cool kids table? I don't feel like I'm getting invited to the cool kids table. So I feel like I'm back in high school, and I'm going to go hang out with the debate team. And I'm not getting included. So I think that it can have that rebound effect. But yeah, to your question, Negin, I don't know why we should take celebrity opinions any more seriously than we take anybody else's opinion. So again, Jennifer Lawrence, great lady. Really regret how our breakup occurred. Super astute person. Very well read. Very well read. I'm not talking about Jen specifically, but like in general though, like I don't know that because you are a very good actor that you have any particular acute analysis of politics or economics or social justice or anything else beyond anybody else I know. You might be, but I would
Like,
put stock in your personal knowledge rather than just whether you're popular.
Right. Like I was reading also that Mark Ruffalo is a huge Zoran fan, and I was like, oh, okay. But I had that moment of like, I think he's an incredible actor. I just devoured Task. However, I'm not sure that matters like literally at all, but that's fine. You know what I mean? So yeah. You were
I mean,
gonna
I think
say,
also with
Olivia.
like Mark Ruffalo, for example, also looking at their history of like like how they've been involved with politics and activism. Like Mark Ruffalo, I think has been relatively outspoken about politics and the
For a
environment, I
long, yeah,
believe, for a long, long time,
yeah,
right? So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, okay, can I look at their track record and see like there's a level of involvement versus Jennifer Lawrence? Maybe she has been super political beyond just advocating for one politician or another. I'm not sure. I would look into that and be like, okay, does she have more knowledge than someone else? But
Right.
I think one interesting thing she said was like she doesn't want her politics to drive people away from, like, I looked at the article and I think,
Yeah.
yeah, she said she doesn't want her politics to drive people away from the work she's making. And I thought that was interesting because I don't know. I don't know that anyone that's like gonna encounter a like I'm just not sure how relevant that point is, to be honest. Like I
Interesting.
think I guess yes, I see the value in saying, well, I don't want someone to immediately categorize me as XYZ supporter and therefore they disengage with my creativity. But I think there's a way for it all to work. The conversations can be revolving around each other. Like I don't think your art is in isolation. I think you can talk about this kind of conundrum you're having while offering up your art,
Yeah.
like I think that's interesting, and if people want to engage with that, they can.
Right, and I mean, it's sort of like Leonardo DiCaprio, I think, is sort of famously tight-lipped about a lot of things, but you can tell from appearing in a movie like One Battle After Another what he might think about the
Right.
current time or whatever. All right, let's move on to another very juicy piece of news, which is that Shein, the very cheap and extra fast fashion retailer will open its first brick and mortar store in, of all places, Paris. I don't know. As listeners may have heard once or twice or several hundred times, I lived in Paris for a time.
Ooh.
And thank you so
Did
much.
you have a scarf?
And I did. And by the way, living in Paris changed my fashion reality. When I did my first like 2 month stint there after in a summer program. I came back as like a 19-year-old with fashion. And
Ooh.
then I did longer stints another couple years later, and I honestly think that it changed my fashion. Okay, so I found this story like particularly, I don't know, I guess it was upsetting to me because not that Paris didn't have shitty places that you could go shop for cheap things. It has plenty of those. Paris has people that go to their version of the dollar store, right? But I don't know, something
the
about
Euro
this
store,
particular
I believe
thing
is what it's called.
Le euro.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. What do you guys think, Olivia? I don't know. Are you? I've never bought anything from Shein. Anyway, what do you think?
I haven't either. I feel like you're trying to hold Paris to a certain standard
I
fashion
am.
wise, is what I'm
Yes.
hearing. Yeah. I
Yes.
mean, listen, I don't have a lot of standards fashion wise. People have called me a lot. People sometimes approach me. They say, that's so fashion forward. And what they mean is how unfortunate that is. So like I get it, the fast fashion stuff, the ethics of it all, of the labor and the quality. Like I understand, having obviously reservations and not being up for it. But in terms of like you holding Paris to a certain fashion standard, I don't know. I think maybe you need to let that go a little. I don't know. Maybe the people in Paris just aren't as fashionable as you remember them being, right? Or aren't as classy. I don't know. I don't know.
Andrew, you're wearing a 6-piece suit that
Yep.
was hand woven by a French person
Yes.
on the banks of the Seine.
Uh-huh.
What do you think?
So I do have a particular style that I like to do. Right now I'm looking a little bit more academic, but normally my style is described as guy who might own a blimp. That is how my friends describe my sartorial choice. During the summer, I am often compared to younger version of dude who owns Jurassic Park. So I dress like a cartoon character rich person from the 1940s. I am not from the 1940s, nor am I rich. But for whatever reason, that's how I feel comfortable. I actually feel deeply uncomfortable, Negin, when I go to Paris or to Italy. I've not been that many times, but whenever I've been there, I feel like I should apologize to the locals. Where I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that I feel like, for anybody that's listening that can't see me, I once had an ambassador tell me I had a painful English horse face. That was his analysis of what I looked like.
Oh no!
And so I look like this
Rude.
suited claymation character that
Why would someone
skulked
say
into.
that?
There was some drinks.
Okay.
But
okay.
There were
I
some
look
drinks
this,
involved.
like
Sure.
suited claymation character that's crab walked into these very sophisticated, stylish places, and I'm very out of sorts. I will admit, I do not know the ins and outs of this particular brand. So I'll break it down into 3 categories, and I would love for you all to further explain this to me so that I've got a better grasp of it. On the fashion side of it, I'm a fashion hedonist. So while I look like British game show host on vacation, other people can do whatever they want. In fact, I don't want everybody to dress like me. I like there being a lot of variety. I like there being a lot of expression. So that to me doesn't bother me at all. On the labor end, I don't know the labor end specifically of this particular company. I think the flack they get is mostly that they have like low wages sweatshop kind of stuff. Is that the thing that they're getting flack
Yeah.
on?
Yeah, that's the vibe. Yes.
Yeah.
I've
shitty factory conditions, the environmental impact, it's
Right.
throwaway fashion.
So the environmental impact makes more sense to me. On the labor side of it, this sounds really counterintuitive and weird, but you don't create good options by getting rid of bad options. So if people are voluntarily working in those deplorable conditions because they still pay better than whatever the other jobs would be in the area, then that's a net positive. So that means that those people need that money, and it's better for them to work there than it would be if the company left and they were going to something paying even worse. It's not the ideal world that we want to live in, but we wouldn't make it better by getting rid of that option for them. The environmental element does make a lot of sense to me. So I don't know a whole lot about this, but it sounds like they're basically making like fashionable one-time use disposable clothing, and that the issue is that it will just be a huge amount of like non-biodegradable material that winds up in landfills or gets washed and turns microplastics into the water supply, that kind of thing.
Well, yeah, and it's already been sort of like doing that because it's been an online retailer.
Right.
And now, for the French, so right now, so the store is taking over the 6th floor of BHV, which is a historic, department store in a historic building that's across from the city hall. And it's really quite beautiful. And now a lot of the independent French fashion brands have pulled their products from BHV because they're in protest. Because it's a bad look.
Is this the first brick and mortar store, or just the first one in Paris?
This is the first permanent one. They think they've done some pop-ups. This
okay.
is the first permanent one. And then they're planning on opening a bunch more in other French cities. Guys, it's coming for New York.
Gotcha, of
It's
course.
inevitable.
Noting that I actually am a fairly unimpressive fellow from Oklahoma, is this as if like Hot Topics moves into a building so Brooks Brothers decides to leave? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I find
wouldn't
that
say,
very funny and very
BHV
French.
Right. I don't know how to like describe BHV. Maybe it's like slightly like a Macy's or something, but it has
But
a lot
people
of
are upset
stuff.
not just because of the vibe of the
Right.
clothing, but also because of the way that the clothing
Sure.
is made in
Well,
the end.
Yeah, and just
yeah,
that it's
yeah.
like and that it's and also one of the sort of French ministers or something said something about that Shein sells childlike sex dolls on their e-commerce site, and they don't like
Oh, no.
that. Which I haven't looked into that, but that was in this. I think we read that in the Guardian. But anyways, folks, I saw something about France, and I had to talk about it. So
You
I feel like
freaked,
we
yeah.
talked about it. I would like to know, has any of this discussion for the listeners moved them to never shop from Shein again because it's like un-French?
You know what,
Just
Negin?
to do so is very un-French.
You've converted me. I pledge.
Thank
Listeners,
you.
I pledge to you in blood, I will not purchase anything from Shein's disposable high
In fact,
fashion
the
sex
three of
doll
us are
store
gonna
in Paris.
get
I will
matching matching permanent lifelong tattoos with that pledge on them. That's
Exactly.
what the three of us will be doing.
Fantastic.
Let's take a quick break to hear about our sponsors. What if we were sponsored by Shein? Kidding, we're not. Okay, let's take a break to hear about our sponsors, and then we'll be back. And we are back, and we're ready for topic number 2, politics. You guys, Dick Cheney has passed away, and I kind of didn't know how to take the news this morning. We're taping here on a Tuesday. He's had a complicated legacy, one that involves starting wars in the Middle East based on lies, but also voting for Kamala Harris because he had become very anti-Trump. I don't know, Andrew, what do you think of Cheney and his legacy? How'd you take the news this morning?
Pretty hard, Negin. You know, Dick and I were on a Dungeons and Dragons team for about 4 years, and so I don't know him as the former vice president. I know him as an 8th level orc warlock who is absolutely indispensable to my team. Now, I will say, Dick and I disagreed on politics in real life and in Dungeons and Dragons. For example, one time we were supposed to go on a quest to get the Goblet of Golbroth, and Dick convinced us to liberate the Goblin homeworld. And I think that he had decent intentions, but a lot of goblins died. Negin, a whole lot of goblins died. We also tortured some of those goblins. So, and then somehow the D&D team wound up in debt. And I don't mean the characters. I mean, like, us personally, we somehow owe $18,000, and I don't even know where it went. So, it was yes, how about this? I applaud Dick Cheney on taking an anti-Trump stance. That's good. It does mean that he did have some beliefs that he truly adhered to, and I appreciate that. But overall, I am inclined to look at Dick Cheney and George W. Bush as absolute disasters. We got into an unnecessary war that cost, 200,000 lives in Iraq and 20,000 lives in America. I think that's the ballpark figure. That's a lot of dead people, needlessly so. I'll add to that for being a small government guy, the Bush administration ended up making the government much larger than it had been under Bill Clinton, and also skyrocketed the debt and the deficit. And that a lot of the stuff that we're dealing with, and we will be dealing with really hard in about 30 years, traces itself back to that era. So I don't wish to speak ill of the dead, but I'm not impressed with his track record as a statesman.
And I do want to say for the record that, my condolences to his family, but it is, it's also a time not to speak ill of the dead, but to just think critically about that person's history in the United States, because he left an indelible mark, as you say. He was defense secretary that helped get us into the Kuwait, Desert Storm. He advocated aggressive policies, including warrantless surveillance, indefinite detention, and brutal interrogation tactics, which you referred to. He pushed for the invasion of Iraq, as we mentioned. That war, by the way, the Iraq invasion and the occupation alone claimed 4,500 American lives and cost more than $2 trillion. But like I said, he has also sounded the alarm on Trump. So it's, a person is not all one thing. That said, I mean, I tend to agree that was not 8 good years with him in the vice presidency.
On my show, the Political Orphanage, I had on Bill Kristol a couple of years ago. Not Billy Crystal, which would be awesome. Billy Crystal, if you're listening, here's an open invitation to come on the program. And we also
anytime,
we're looking for a mage in my D&D group now, so if you want to join. But I had on William Crystal, formerly of the Weekly Standard, formerly of the Bush administration. And he is a very kind man who I think really believes what he's saying, and what he believes resulted in a wanton amount of death. I think when you get into politics, you have to separate intention from outcome. And there are people that have very well-intended ideas that are nonetheless disastrous. And I am capable of going, I think that this person's a decent human being, but they should not be given power. Like John Bolton, the ambassador, our former ambassador to the UN, John Bolton, I used to hang out with him in the green room at Fox Business. And the last time I talked to him, I told him something to the effect of, hey, you have a standing invitation to my birthday party. I think you're a really fun guy. Like, I enjoy hanging out with you. I would absolutely sign a law prohibiting you from holding any office ever for the rest of all time because you are so dangerous. And
How did he take that?
He said that to his face.
What's weird about John Bolton?
Wow.
Again, I like John. Like, I actually like John Bolton. I think he's very dangerous. What's weird about him is he's the only person I've ever met that doesn't appear to have adrenaline. Like, you can have 18 people screaming at him, and he's just like getting cheese. Like, it just doesn't bother him at all. So he was unbothered by it. Like, but again, like I can separate. Like I think Cheney and that whole neocon lot. I think what they thought was going to happen is we would be welcomed as liberators, and that Iraq would turn into a peaceful Hayekian liberal capitalist democracy, and then that they would use that as a stable staging ground for the rest of the Middle East. And it backfired horribly, and a lot of people are dead for that. And so, like, I don't think he should be in hell, but also I don't think we should elect anybody like him again.
Olivia, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think
How many times have you hung out with John Bolton is the question I have for you.
Listen, it's just been a handful, and it was like, there was no green room talk,
You just pounded drinks at the Stonewall?
Yeah, he came to my show, my very queer show, we hung out afterwards, like, so it's not the same kind of rapport, I will admit. Yeah, I mean, I think, he did a lot of really bad things. I don't know if I have the same, sure, people contain multitudes. The separating of this person is a decent person to hang out with and yet sort of committed these acts. I think it's trickier for me because I'm sort of like, well, I don't know if you're so great if you're doing these things, even though you're kind of like a nice hang. I don't know how I feel about that one. And it's interesting. I recently dated someone who was a bit politically different, and we would come up against, we would have these conversations, and she'd say, well, people really do believe this. They're not just like talking out of their ass. And I'd be like, sure, I understand people believe this, but I don't want to give those people power. So kind of like what you're saying, like, it's dangerous. And I also believe, I don't know, I guess I'm sort of looking at the person as a whole, and I do have a harder time separating some things. So
Yeah. No, so I mean, and we'll move on, but I did want to say that I remember seeing the movie Vice, which was about Dick Cheney. And the movie's sort of premise was like, this guy wasn't a brilliant guy. I think there was a lot of attribution to him of brilliance in that era, that he was like maybe evil, but also so smart. And what the movie the like kind of premise of the movie was like, he wasn't brilliant. He just like stayed quiet a lot, and people thought because he was so quiet that he was really smart.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of this guy that we knew in college who a lot of ladies wanted to bone. And he had that exact quality. People are just like, I don't know, he's like mysterious.
Right. It's like an enigma.
He's an enigma, he's intelligent. And then my friend became like really good friends with him and roommates with this guy. And she's like, oh my God, he's not smart. He's just
stupid.
Doesn't say anything. Like, and it was so, and I was like, oh, and I've always thought of like, did everyone in the world get Dick Cheney wrong based on this one depiction in the movie? But okay,
right.
Folks, let's move on because more importantly, the government is still shut down. It's on pace to be the longest shutdown in history. And this weekend, SNAP benefits did not go out. A federal court ordered the Trump administration to pay up for SNAP, but as of today, they say they'll pay a portion of the benefits from the emergency funds, but not the total. I don't know. Olivia, what do you think of this ongoing nightmare for poor people?
You need to get people their SNAP benefits ASAP. There are so many people that rely on SNAP benefits. It doesn't matter, I've heard conversations around, well, what are they buying? It doesn't matter what people are buying. People need to survive. I'm not going to judge the food that people are eating. I'm not going to judge why someone needs SNAP benefits. I think, there's a lot of discourse out there, and I think probably a lot more people are on SNAP benefits, people that you wouldn't expect than you realize. And I think it's going to be really bad for the country if the people that are relying on SNAP benefits don't get it, because people aren't going to be able to eat. They're not going to be able to feed their kids. They're not going to be, then what are they going to have the energy to go to work? I think overall, it doesn't do anything good for anyone in terms of keeping this country moving. So I think, we need to do the full benefits, not half benefits, and it needs to happen now.
Andrew, I mean, can you predict how this shutdown will end? I mean, does this feel like a milestone moment with the SNAP benefits?
What's funny is I live in Washington, D.C. I moved here about a year ago, and I was actually at the Capitol yesterday. I went to Speaker Johnson's presser, so I was in the room when he was addressing everybody. and then I went to 4 or 5 different offices and just kind of talked to staffers there. And I think that we don't need to worry too much because this will probably wrap up by Christmas of 2027. I think that it won't be that long. No one knows what's going on. Is my insider take on this. The vibe on Capitol Hill is pajama and beanbag day. Everybody's hanging out and like no one knows what's going on. Nobody seemed to have a clear perspective on it. My hope is what happens is that there's an election today in Virginia, and I believe in New Jersey and a few other places as well. My hope is that whatever the outcome is, that's going to be what settles the tie in the brinksmanship. Because from what I can tell, and I'm kind of baffled by this entire thing. Olivia, I'm with you. I think like food stamps good. I think like not starving is a pretty okay level of social safety net we can all agree on.
For sure.
Like, you know,
for sure.
Even if some people don't need it and they're faking it, I'm okay with there being some bloat to make sure that the people that really need it get it.
Yeah, exactly. Totally.
In terms of what's happening, what's causing it, my read on the situation is I think that there's 2 vectors right now that's determining how long this goes on. Vector 1 is which party is willing to put up with collateral damage the longest before they blink. And by collateral damage, I mean food stamps. I mean federal employees being furloughed. Overall harm to the economy because there tends to be like actual just economic damages that happens during a shutdown, and then we end up back paying everything anyway. So they're really stupid wastes of time for everybody involved. So that's part of it because one of the 2 teams has to blink. Either 7 Democrats in the Senate have to go, that's it, I'm going to vote for the continuing resolution, and we'll just kick the can down the road a little bit longer, or the Republicans are going to have to go, okay, we concede, and we're going to put in your Obamacare extensions and Medicaid provisions and so on and so forth. So there's the collateral damage bit of just how long are you willing to let this go on? And then the second factor is who's going to look worse? And on the first one, I think the Democrats are more likely to blink first. If I just had to guess of which party is going to be more bothered by federal employees not going to work for the government and food stamps, I think the Democrats are more likely to go, you know what, we got to really do something here, even if this means capitulating. On the optics of it thing, it's so down the middle. I've been looking at the polls on this for the last month, and 90% of Republicans think that it's the Democrats' fault. 90% of Democrats think that it's the Republicans' fault. And when you get into independents, which is about half of the electorate, it's like 60-40. They think like
60 for who?
60% think it's the Republicans' fault. So in terms of optics, the Democrats are faring better, but not by a lot. And I also don't know where those people are. So my hope is that when the election settles today, there'll be enough oomph for one side or the other to go, okay, we got to end this. And then barring that, I think what will ultimately make this stop is there's no way that this isn't going to have a massive outpouring if people aren't getting home for Thanksgiving. So if TSA operators and those dudes on the tarmac that have the red things that guide the planes in, air traffic controllers,
I don't know those guys.
If the 3 days before Thanksgiving they go, look, we're not getting paid, we're all just going to do Uber. Like, that's it. Like, I think at that point, I would be surprised if it went on much past that.
Yeah. It's so interesting. I find the whole thing, obviously, like everybody, really fucking frustrating. And I also think there's like 2 things I really wish would happen. I really wish we would get rid of the idea of a debt ceiling, because the debt ceiling gets used again for these kinds of standoffs. And like Senator James Lankford, the Republican from Oklahoma who introduced the Prevent Government Shutdowns Act, I believe there should not be such a thing as a government shutdown. We should always fund the government on the previous year's budget or whatever until a new thing is arrived at. The most modern governments do this. Yep. It doesn't make sense that we don't do that. It's so fucking barbaric that we're even having this conversation. And again, and just in a nice moment of bipartisanship, I know everybody's been wondering, when are Negin and James Lankford of Oklahoma gonna see eye to eye? Guys, this is that moment, okay?
The moment
this
came, finally.
Moment.
You know what's really weird about this? So I'm working on a program for the political orphanage on shutdowns, and this only goes back to 1980. Like the reason the proximate cause for a lot of this is there was an attorney general under Jimmy Carter named Civiletti who interpreted the Appropriations Act of 1870 as such to say when Congress doesn't pass a budget, the government can't operate. So prior to that decision from the attorney general, whenever there was a budgetary gap, like now, all of the departments would go, let's tighten the belt a bit, but obviously we should keep the lights on. And we'll keep the lights on until Congress gets its shit together, and then we'll
Right.
That was the operating procedure. An attorney general went, no, you can't do that. You're going to have to delineate between essential services and non-essential services that would be furloughed.
Stop.
But it was an attorney general's decision. So
What was it? What was that guy's
I believe
name?
it was Civiletti. And what
That was
Okay,
1980?
so you know how everyone says they're going to go back, if they had a chance to go back, they would go back in time and kill baby Hitler.
Yeah.
What I would do is I would go back in time and make sure that Civiletti became a plumber. That's
Yeah.
what I
What-
would
what I
do.
find-
Because
And
that's
he'd
how
get paid
fucking
well.
annoyed I am
what I
about
think
this
is weird
shit.
about it is if this is all hinging on an attorney general's memorandum, from where I'm at, I don't think there's anything to stop Pam Bondi from going, no, that's wrong, and just saying we're not doing that anymore. Like I think actually,
Come on,
the
Pam.
attorney general could just say we're going back to
Ooh.
1979, at which point either the Supreme Court would have to overrule it or Congress would have to talk to James Lankford and go, all right, why don't we just make an automatic continuing resolution thing? So like I think there actually are, but instead we're like building a ballroom instead of like that.
Right. That's how we're using our precious time on this earth. Folks, I don't know. There must be some sort of like constitutional lawyer or whatever that knows more than us three idiots. Although Andrew,
Surely.
you made a case for yourself between the 3 pairs of underwear and that little interesting historical tidbit
yeah.
that you are the leader of the 3 idiots.
Thank you.
There must
I'm
be
the Dick
someone
Cheney
who
of the
knows.
3 idiots. I'll take it.
You talk too much to be Dick Cheney. All right, so let us move on. And now we're ready for topic number 3. Let's talk about what women really want. We've heard about flexible work hours. We've heard about daycare in the office. We've heard about hybrid work. We've heard about remote work. We've talked about so many work-life arrangements that women supposedly want that'll just make the family, the average American family work. But according to a paper by 2 economists, working mothers would, quote, forego almost 40% of their income to avoid an employer discretion job in which their boss sets their hours at will. So this is really interesting. We read a piece by Dr. Corinne Lowe. She's an economist at UPenn, and she basically has her own work, and she cites the work of other economists that came to that conclusion. Olivia, now, I don't know if you have kids, but you're
Not
a
I.
lady.
Not I.
You're basically
Yeah.
not at all. There's no reason for you to weigh in on this, but weigh in on this.
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely.
What do you? I mean, are you surprised to hear that the thing that women want most is for when the workday is over? That's it. Like no more emails, no more. I'm checking my, my phone or whatever after hours. That's it. I'm done with work for that day.
I do think that's important because I do think that, like, listen, I think there are all sorts of different kinds of jobs. I've never been the best at setting boundaries. That's actually something I'm actively trying to work on. And I have sort of like I have many jobs. I am an unqualified chess teacher. I am an underqualified soccer and basketball coach, and I am an assistant. And I think some of those, the boundaries are a little blurry. And I don't know, I think that is a really important aspect of things because I think that there are so many ways in which, like, even for me, and I feel like I'm pretty good at speaking up for myself, and I have an employer that is incredibly generous and kind, it's still this weird thing where, like, it takes a lot of energy when you don't have those boundaries set. I'll be like, oh, well, what should, like, am I on call? Am I not on call? Then you're expending energy thinking about the fact that you're thinking about the thing and not totally sure about the thing. So I think it's a total energy suck, and it makes sense to me. And I think just understanding really clearly, okay, this is when I'm doing this and this is when I'm not, actually frees up a lot of like mind space and energy, personally speaking. But I don't have kids. I get to spend a lot of time to myself. So I've encountered this in a very minor way, but to me, this honestly makes a lot of sense. Like,
Andrew, what do you think?
I have thoughts, but being a guy here in Negin, I'd actually like to hear your thoughts first. Can I defer to you before I weigh in?
Yeah. Okay. So it's funny because I brought this up. Had read this piece and then I brought it up with a couple of the Persian moms after Farsi school on Sundays. You know what that's like. And
Absolutely.
and so we were sitting around on a park bench on a beautiful fall day talking about this idea of like, is that what you want? And I think, a lot of the moms said that, yeah, that's basically a big problem is they feel, and I'm not like, I'm kind of like you, Olivia. I don't have one boss. I have like 45 bosses because I have a million gigs, and that's how I work. I'm freelance, and I try to make a lot of people happy, and that is exhausting in its own way. But I don't necessarily have a job where people are like expecting me to be on my phone at 10 p.m. I have friends of mine, these Persian moms do, and they were saying like that sometimes they just feel like they're just imprisoned by this form of life. And as a mother, it can be really exhausting because when you're at home, you're supposed to like be focused on your kids. And then when the kids go to sleep, you have like an hour window to yourself before you also collapse into a puddle of sleep. And so in that hour window, do you want to be like looking at your fucking work emails? Like it feels horrible, right? And so I do think there is, but the other thing we talked about is this, which is that like Gen Z, these friends of mine, one of them has like a lot of staff, and she was just saying like when they want promotions, if the ones that don't seem willing to like put in the hours, she's not going to promote them. So the kind of solution we came up with is if you're in your 20s or early 30s, you have to be on call forever. Like you're always on call. And then the second you kind of turn, let's say like you turn 35, you're like got a kid, life becomes more annoying that way, then boundaries. I think because I do think as a 20-something, I had so much energy. I was able to do I was able to work constantly. But then life has like certain rigors, family life has certain rigors, and then you just kind of like really have a hard time working constantly. But you also have this feeling of like, I paid my dues. Shouldn't I graduate out of working constantly? So that's my feeling, Andrew. What does that say?
So on my end, I am a male, but I'm married. I have 4 wives. None of them know about each other. I'm going to ask everybody to be cool about this and not let them know, okay? Let's keep this under wraps, but I have 4 wives. They say very similar things to what you all are saying. I loved the article that you sent. I thought this was a really interesting article. I really enjoyed the data on it. I in real life, I am a single man desperately hoping that Negin's horde of listeners will court me and I can pair up and have a child. But as such, like just as a guy, I felt this for sure. Like I've had to. I am self-employed, but even then, I've now put the email on my phone in a folder at the back of my phone because I constantly check it, and that's eating into my cognitive time. Fortunately, I am slowly training myself to realize that I'm actually not very important, that there are very few people that are going to have to talk to me now. But even then, it's built in. And when back when I was hanging out with John Bolton in a green room, there was a moment at Fox Business one time where there was some story that was thought to come up over that weekend. And my producer went, hey, everybody, you might need to come in over the weekend. Be sure to check your email. And I very politely went, I'm not going to do that. And he went, what? And I went, hey, I understand that part of the job is that I have to come in on weekends occasionally, and I'm fine with that. If this is important enough for me to come in, you should call me. I have my phone with me. You know my number. You're welcome to call me. I will come in and I won't complain. But what I'm not going to do is check my email every hour because then I don't have a weekend, and I deserve to have that weekend. So if it's important enough, I'll come in, call me, but I'm not going to come in here. And so I relate to that. And the part of the article that I love, Negin, was it talked about how I did not know this. Apparently, men do spend more time with their kids since the 1970s, but women have doubled the amount of time they spend with their kids since the 1970s. So, like,
Isn't
actually, men are being better, but women are being so much better that when you've got a limited amount of time between them, it's still disproportionately female. That men are not spending any more time in terms of chores, cleaning or cooking than they were in the 70s. I certainly am not. I like eat over the sink with a fork. I'm wretched, right? And so it makes sense to me then that this would be a really big issue if a woman is the primary person in her family for all the kids and the housework going on, even if the guy's better than in the 50s and the 70s, to have all of this intrude into their time makes total sense to me. And I thought it was interesting that one of the things the article says is that this could be one of the reasons that there's so many more female nurses than there are male nurses. We always sort of assume that it's latent sexism, which it might be. That could very much be part of it. But the article kind of made the case that, well, what's appealing about that is that they're rigorous hours, but they are set.
But they are set. I love that part of the piece because she also talked about most medical students are women now, 70% of physician assistants are women, 90% of nurse practitioners. And these are the occupations that are growing. In the past 2 years, nearly 40% of all new jobs have gone to women working in healthcare. And you'd think that if women wanted so much remote work, or if they wanted so much of a hybrid schedule, that they would not be attracted to that field. But I mean, there's some chicken and the egg questions here, but like in terms of, in terms of like women wanting to go to that field, what this economist is positing is that like, it's because, Ray, as you said, Andrew, shift work means that your job is over for the day when it's over. And so, I wish fucking comedy worked that way. Guys, I'm on call so hard as a comedian. You don't even know that.
You just don't get what it's like to be a comedian.
We need a joke right now. We need a joke right now, Negin.
I mean, can I add something too, Joe? Just to push back a little against what you were saying, Negin. Yeah. Like, I think I get the like, yes, young with energy for sure. I had it, still have a little bit of it, but I also think like there is this shift, and I could be wrong, but I think it's something I have observed or heard about a little bit, right? With younger folks that are a bit more like insistent about their boundaries and being like, I'm going to work hard, but I'm going to do it within this time that we've allotted. And like this idea that maybe your friend wants people to go above and beyond, like, why does it have to be above and beyond outside of those set hours? Can't someone prove themselves within the time that's allotted? Can't someone say like, I'm going to work really, really hard in this period of time, but I don't have to give you what you believe is that extra amount. I don't have to give you all of myself all the time. Like,
right. Is it jealousy on my part, Olivia, that I didn't think of it when I was in my 20s to ever advocate for myself in any way.
And that makes sense. But I think totally. And I think sometimes it can be, especially like, I mean, I'm a millennial, but with these Gen Z folks, they've got their own things going on. And I'm like, oh, okay. But it's like, yeah, kind of go off. Like, I respect y'all. And like, I'm here for it, you know?
Go off, but also show that you're like into the job.
Show that you care. I agree
a lot. I'm not an executive. I don't have a bunch of staff, but like I hear this complaint a lot from friends that are like, they just act like this job is, they're doing me a favor.
Right.
Don't do that part. Because then,
no, it's good to show you care. Yeah.
All right, folks, 3 people without stable jobs have weighed in on this issue. That's the end of the show, and I want the people of Fake the Nation to be able to follow you and all the wonderful things that you do. Andrew Heaton, where do they do that?
So first, thanks for having me back. I love coming on this show. This is so much fun. I always have a blast. Olivia, it was a pleasure to meet you and to talk to you.
Pleasure to meet you, too.
Negin, I am always so flattered when you invite me on the program. I always have a really good time. And I will add that your listeners, when they reach out to contact me, are exclusively very intelligent and nice people. I've enjoyed all my interactions with this isn't true for every show I've been on, but everybody that I've interacted with from your show has been great. So if you all want to follow me, I host a show called The Political Orphanage, and I have gone a step further. I put on my website a webpage. If you go to mightyheaton.com/fakethenation,
oh, shit.
I am going to curate 5 or 6 episodes that I think your listeners would like of my program. So you can either check out The Political Orphanage, or if you want to find stuff that I think you guys in particular would like, go to mightyheaton.com/fakethenation.
Oh, what a brilliant idea. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if our crossover listenership isn't, somehow significant. Right. And then your wife is in that Venn diagram.
Yeah.
Olivia, where do people find you?
Sure. You can find me at Olivia Levine 19 on Instagram. You can also find, I have two monthly comedy shows that I host. One is called Strapped Comedy, as Negin said. That's at Stonewall every month. That's Strapped_comedy. And then I host a new show at Second City with my dear friend and employer, Jordan Carlos. And that's called Humped Comedy. And that's at Second City. There are a lot of this is a humped, strapped,
Nice.
there's some
Yes,
sex things.
just
Yeah.
all in the past tense.
Yeah.
Folks, and by the way, Jordan Carlos, Fake the Nation veteran.
Yeah,
so
I bet.
We
Yeah.
are just
Great
all
guy.
the very incestual group of people.
Yeah.
And you know where to find me and all the things that I do. I just want to say that this episode comes out right before we have the results from the Virginia, New Jersey, and New York City election. So hopefully I'll be able to post a little election bonus. Let's just hope that happens. I will be in Costa Mesa doing the Wait, Don't Tell Me live show there on Thursday. If you don't have tickets, see if there's some tickets left. It would be so great for you to see the show in person. I'd love to see you back after the show if you're in the audience. I don't know how that happens. I haven't been to that theater, but hopefully. And I'll be doing a show in DC coming up. So just, you'll keep, stay tuned for
Negin,
all
will
of
you
that.
please let me know when that is, and then also I can show up and you can acknowledge me 8 or 9 times on stage.
Yeah,
absolutely,
absolutely.
Just 8 or
While
9.
also, right, while also matchmaking you with a local DC single.
We love.
But I want to thank everyone who makes the show a possibility. That's our wonderful producer, Rob Heath. Thanks to Gabi Alter, who wrote our theme music. You can email us at fakethenationpodcast@gmail.com, and you can support the show at patreon.com/Negin Farsad. And we'll be back in your earballs next week.